Dr. Zachariah Chinne, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. This is long overdue, I believe. So, in this podcast, we'll be talking about just a variety of things as we think about issues that confront our society, especially our African society where we are originally from. But we'll be talking about anything, we'll be talking about politics, business, entrepreneurship, and what have you. So, in this first episode, we just want to start by talking about what is happening back home in Africa, especially using the example of Nigeria and Kenya with the protests that are ongoing. What do you make of all this?
There's a number of factors to consider with, I don't want to call it an uprising, but with the demonstrations that we find going on in Nigeria, in Kenya, and in other places. I think it was in the wake of the Arab Spring that the former Nigerian president, Olusegun Obasanjo, talked about an African winter.
Hmm.
And it appears that maybe this is the winter. I think he was recently asked what he thought about Kenya when he went there to play the role of mediation. And he was asked, now, is this the winter he was referring to? I don't know if he described it as autumn or whatever, but whatever it is, there is a growing discontent on the African continent, a growing dissatisfaction, using the Nigerian case as an example, among the people. The common people are dissatisfied, they are not happy with the situation on the ground, that you have so much material abundance, material wealth, and prosperity of a nation that does not reflect in the way, in the living conditions of the people. So, in any situation, in any context, in any country where you find this growing dissatisfaction, it leads to an outburst of anger. And this outburst of anger may take different forms and different shapes. It may come in variety of ways. There may also be different motivations for the march that we see going on. Whether it's well organized or not, it's one thing. Whether it's also well executed, it's something that historians will have to look at and ask maybe some of the questions like, what has been the benefit? In the Nigerian case, you may say, well, it is most likely that it has benefited maybe the nation or maybe the people protesting, in the sense that there's been an agreement reached as to the minimum wage. But this minimum wage, this horrid signing of minimum wage, may not necessarily translate into an actual payment of it.
Hmm.
So that also creates another bad bad scenario for us. So I think back to what we're trying to address is that the people are hungry, and because they are hungry, they are angry. And because they are angry, and there is nobody seems to be paying attention to the anger, to both the hunger and the anger of the people, you find this mass mobilization of the citizenry. But just looking at the Nigerian case and seeing how different it is from Kenya. In the Nigerian case, you have religious leaders coming in to either be for or against using religion. You find also the ethnic dimension to the protests in Nigeria. So it's a little bit different compared to Kenya in a situation where I didn't hear. Maybe our Kenyan brothers and sisters may verify this or fact check this for me. I didn't hear the issue of religion or ethnicity at play in the Kenyan situation. It was more of the issue at stake. So I think these are some of the issues that I see with the protests in Nigeria.
You talked about hunger and anger. I believe you were not trying to use rhymes. Hunger generally leads to anger. They say a hungry man is an angry man,
Absolutely.
and it is you see that a lot in our country, unfortunately, or in our continent. Uh, People are really frustrated, and someone once said there is an extent to which you will push people. People can bear with a lot, and especially when you look at our country, Nigeria, people have bought a lot of things, but there is just a limit to that. That is not in any way, we are not in any way using a language to instigate anything. It's just a natural way of things that when people bear and bear so much, it gets to a point that they don't care because they know whether they do something or not. It's like the biblical story, right?
Mhm.
Correct me if I'm wrong. My Bible knowledge will be tested right now. But was it during which of the kings was it? Was it Ahab or so? When they had that hunger problem and they were selling the head of a donkey for whatever, and the
Mhm.
people, those lepers, when they
Yeah.
became so frustrated, they knew that whatever they did, they were going to die. So
Yeah.
they said, let's just go to the city. If we die, we die, right?
Oh yeah.
So I think there is going back, I'm just trying to piggyback on your point that people get to a point that they don't care. They just feel whether I do something or not, it doesn't matter. So it's better that I even try to do
Mm-hmm.
something. And I don't know whether you want to comment more on that. You said I didn't catch. I guess I heard what you said, but I didn't really understand the difference between the protests going on in Kenya or that took place. I don't know whether the protests are over now in Kenya. I know in Nigeria it is still ongoing or they are still ongoing. So I didn't really catch a difference between what I know you mentioned religion, but if you will try to probably expatiate on that more, the difference of what you the protests that are happening in Kenya and in Nigeria. And let me just ask these questions specifically, maybe that will help clarify it more. Do you think what is happening in Kenya or Nigeria is social protest, political protest, or what kind of protest can we refer to? Yeah.
So what is interesting and I think very peculiar to the Nigerian situation is that everything gets ethnicized and religionized.
Hmm.
So when that happens, it takes the steam out of what will have been a movement. This protest will have been a movement of agitated Nigerians who want a better country for every one of us. But the religious dimension to it, the ethnic dimension to it, they all contribute in taking the steam out of this protest. So I was saying that unlike Nigeria, I didn't hear the issue of ethnicity, of religion becoming very predominant in the Kenyan protests. There were conversations that were dominating the airspace in Nigeria. You hear, and especially many Islamic clerics came out to talk about the issue of protest and how it is forbidden. And there were those who were for it, but mostly were against it. And there were young people who also revolted against the religious elite who were trying to stop them from the protest. So this religionization of everything, this ethnicization of everything in Nigeria is our major undoing. Until we get to the point where we will go beyond religion and ethnicity and face our problems as they are, we will continue to be under the domination of the political elite. Now, the political elite may not necessarily go to our markets because they have stolen enough funds from us to go anywhere and do shopping and do their shopping. But the poor Christian and the poor Muslim all have one market they go to. There is no market for Christians that is separate from market for Muslims. There is no economy that is in Nigeria that is just for Muslims and an economy for Christians. There is no hunger that affects only Christians and not Muslims. When a Muslim is hungry, he is hungry. When a Christian is hungry, he is hungry. And it's the same thing that goes in. So we must try and see our differences beyond the differences of religion and ethnicity. The differences in Nigeria is just between the poor and the rich. The rich Muslim and the rich Christian, they associate at the top level together. When they associate, it's not about you are a rich Muslim, I am a rich Christian. No, they are rich people. Simple. But it's among the very downtrodden in the society that we find issues of religion and ethnicity being amplified again by the political elite. The more they sow the discord, the religious and the ethnic discord among the poor people, the more they keep marginalizing the poor, and the more they keep the poor subservient to them. It doesn't matter the religion of the poor. So it is coming to the place where, as a people, we are able to go beyond these differences.
Religion has always been a big factor in Nigerian politics. Some people talk about the politicization of religion and vice versa. Do you think the Nigerian audience, whether you're Christian or Muslim, do you think people are beginning, especially talking about young people or the youth, do you think they are beginning to see through that? And can we project that in the next decade or so, we will see drastic change in this aspect of the marriage of religion and politics, or weaponization of religion by politics or politics by religion? I don't know how to even express that. So using religion for political purposes, do you think the young people are understanding what is happening, and in the next, probably not that people will become less religious, but maybe they will see through the politics of religion and not and try to detach themselves from that?
There are some young people whose videos I've had the privilege of viewing, and the videos are by young people, especially from the north of Nigeria. Now, these are highly educated young people, Muslim young people, Christian young people, who are seeing beyond the divisions that are created by, again, the political elite. These young people are seeing beyond the animosity that has been sown among our people. And I feel like the hope of a nation, the hope of Nigeria, is going to depend upon these young people. They are educated, they are exposed, they've seen different sides of the world and how things operate. And they have this undying commitment and passion for Nigeria. They have these like an indestructible faith in a better Nigeria. These are the people I feel who will make the desired change because they are able to break the barriers of religion, of ethnicity. They are able to break all of the other barriers, social barriers that have been created by our oppressors, our local oppressors.
Hmm.
In these young people, you say, yeah, there's so much hope. Now, what is responsible for the change in these young people that I see again is education. The vast majority of the people who get used are the illiterate.
Hmm.
So they are kept in perpetual illiteracy and they become easy tools in the hands of disgruntled politicians. Now, until the awareness level of a people increase, their development will also be retarded. So our development as a nation, our growth as a nation, our peaceful coexistence as a nation, the sustainability, economic sustainability of Nigeria as a nation will depend on this growing sense of awareness among our people through education. The more the youth are educated, the more they are exposed to other realities outside of that which they are accustomed to knowing. What they are accustomed to knowing in the present dispensation, or even in the past, has been us against them or them against us. No, it is not always us versus them. This is all us. So I feel like the more enlightenment we get, the more we are able to let go of these unhelpful ideologies that have been ingrained in our national psyche as a nation. So, yes, we have hope that these young people will bring about a desired change.
Somebody listening to this will say, I beg to disagree, because there are a lot of educated people in Nigeria that the ones who are, they're educated, but they are also religious fanatics. How will you respond to that? In both camps, from both camps, right? Be they Christians or Muslims. Very educated. Some of them have even gone to some of the best schools. I wouldn't mention names here on this podcast, but we know them. They are very educated, very smart, very intelligent. They have traveled far and wide. Despite that, they are religious fanatics. Is that the exception?
Mm. I'm trying to put this right. I think I am getting it right. I think it's Mark Twain who once said he doesn't want his schooling to get in the way of his education.
Yeah, sure.
Some of the people we think are educated are only schooled but not educated. And I know that in the seminary days, we used to say people went through the seminary, but the seminary didn't go through them.
Mm-hmm.
Because education is transformative. It's not just impartation of information, it's transformation. And so when people are not transformed, they are really not educated. They may have acquired mastery of a certain discipline and can quote and name people here and there. But unless you see that there's transformation in their worldview, their transformation in their outlook to life, their transformation in their relationships, their transformation in the aspiration for national building, nation building, we really can't say that these people are educated. That's why, yes, they come here, they see everything they see here, they see the development here, they see the orderliness here, and the same people, as soon as you get to, in fact, when you fly from, okay, let's put it like this. When you get to Heathrow, the flight from Heathrow to Abuja or to Lagos is usually rowdy and chaotic.
I can speak from a personal experience.
Great,
You
great.
know, there was a time I flew literally from Heathrow, and everyone was civilized. We were
Yep,
going back to Abuja, and everyone was behaving themselves. And the moment we landed in Abuja,
yep,
I looked back, and it was hysterical to me. It was like,
yep,
did we change the people? Are these the same people? People started using our language in Nigeria. Do you know who I am?
yep,
Literally, people started fighting.
yep,
People that boarded this plane from Heathrow, upon landing in Abuja, they literally were fighting, like fist fighting. And I looked at it, I couldn't understand the whole thing. So it's amazing that you're bringing that up, you know.
you know, during I think it was during uh, the tenure of John Ajang as governor of Plateau State that motorcycles were banned and KK was introduced, and many of the KKs were flipping.
Mm.
Uh, and so people were wondering what's going on. The KK riders were just involved in all kinds of accidents. So at a conference, I said, you know, what happened is that is the same um, motor Okada riders that are now the KK riders. What we have changed is mobility, not mentality.
Mm,
So
mm,
so long as the mentality of a people is not changed,
mm.
if the only change is mobility, as this KK turned out to be, you're going to have the same problem.
Yeah.
And I think this is the bane of our nation. Um, Going to Europe alone, going to America, going to Asia alone will not be, that is not even the magic.
Mm,
The magic is having a change mentality,
mm.
a transformed one, a renewed one. And I think this is what Dora, the late Professor Dora Akunyili, was trying to do, rebranding the nation.
Mm.
It's not enough to say Nigeria, good people, great nation. We must be it in every facet of our development.
Mm.
If it's not enough even to call ourselves a giant of Africa, what are we giant for? When you can't have the basic things of life, you can't boast of electricity, you can't boast of water supply. Everyone has become his own electricity company, his water board, his road engineer and contractor. Everyone has become everything the government is supposed to do because you see a great nation failing. So I think that there is more than just amassing degrees. Are we really schooled? Are we really educated? I mean, sorry, are we really educated to the point that we see the transformation in the way our people live.
I know we have talked about that, but I want to go back to the issue of protest, whether in Nigeria or in Kenya. Do you think national protest, if Nigeria, let's say, all our sociopolitical zones, everyone came from the east, from the southwest, from the north, and everywhere in Nigeria was engaged in this protest. Do you think national protests produce any good? Do they produce any result? I guess I'm asking this question from both a historical perspective and also a practical perspective.
I'm looking at the historical dimension to protests in Nigeria. And I'm wondering if, apart from the Aba Women riot of 1920, that there's been any riot that has been successful. Yes,
Are
we
you
can.
intentionally using the word riot
Oh, sorry.
synonymously with protest?
They call it riot, but it was a protest. It's again, historians will debate over the right coinage of that, but that was a protest. And again, that raises the question: is there a right way to protest?
Probably that begs the question of pacifism, right? Is there the right way to protest? I will say yes, to a reasonable degree. There should be, I don't know where I read this, but someone wrote about the right way to protest. I think it was this person was a pacifist. I can't remember who exactly, but he gave like certain criteria, 5 or 6. I can't remember them all right now on the go. But yeah, the basic idea of the right way to protest was a protest should have a right cause. A protest should not be violent, right? It should be peaceful. If it becomes violent, then the aim is defeated. If people are killed, blood is shed, there is destruction of property, then it is not the right protest, right? But that also begs the question, how possible is it to really curtail and, prevent some of these things from happening? If there is a national protest, the good, the bad, and the ugly are bound to happen. Even in the so-called, not so-called, even in the during the civil rights movements in America, a lot of people died. Even in India with Gandhi, with his, nonviolent protests, people died. And we can give example of pacifists that led protests, peaceful protests, but inadvertently, sometimes it becomes brutal. It could be brutal from the perspective of the protesters or the opposers. I don't know what I've been rambling some things there.
No, I think that you are right on course. It's I will argue that there is a right to protest.
Okay.
But as to a right way to protest, we'll have to ask like the question, why do people even protest in the first place?
So why do people protest?
That's a good one. When people are not heard, they look for ways to make their voices heard. When people are not seen, protest becomes a way to be visible
Mm.
before those who have willingly blinded themselves from the atrocities, from the marginalization, from the deprivation, from the poverty, the misery, and all of the sufferings of the people. Um, I wish that all protests will be peaceful. That is just an aspiration that every protest should be peaceful.
Shouldn't that be the goal?
No, the goal of protests, I don't think, is that it's peaceful. The goal of protests is that you get to hear us, you get to see us.
Well, probably I used the wrong word then. I think I meant to say, shouldn't that be
Like the
uh,
mode,
the mod? Yeah.
I will wish that all protests are peaceful. I will wish. I will desire to see them be peaceful. But again, it's just a wish.
Mm.
So you go out and protest peacefully,
Mm.
and the person who is supposed to see you pretends he doesn't see you. The person who is supposed to hear you pretends that he is he is deaf.
And sometimes he's even aggressive towards you.
Okay, so the aggression is not even coming from me.
Hmm.
The aggression is coming from the person who has suppressed me
Mm.
and is refusing to acknowledge my cry that I'm being suppressed. So he intimidates me
Hmm.
into reacting. But because the person, my intimidator, is the one with power,
Mm.
and I am the one who is powerless, it's
Mm.
my reaction that people talk about rather than his action that instigated me.
Yeah.
So I don't like that properties are burnt or looted. I don't like that there is vandalization of public property when people protest. In the Nigerian case, it seems that is the only language that government understands.
Mm.
It's an unfortunate story, but I've lived long enough to have seen one protest after the other. My only sympathy is that most of the victims of this vandalism are not the government,
Yeah.
are not our political elite. They are fellow poor people like you and I who have struggled to make ends meet.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And even when you vandalize government property, it is still our money they're going to use. Uh, or they're going to take hefty loans from outside and use 1/5 of the loan to fix it, and the rest goes into their pocket.
Aside from that, if you vandalize, you know, government property, say schools, the people in the helm of affairs do not send their children to those schools.
Oh, yeah.
Their children are schooling abroad.
So
So at
true.
the end of the day, you are at the receiving end, right?
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's it's an unfortunate it's an unfortunate situation.
So are you pro protest or anti protest?
No, I wish that we don't even get to the point of even asking if I am for or against. In an ideal situation, which in Nigeria, an ideal situation is um, it's not only um, an ambitious wish. I think it is wishful optimism
Hmm.
in the sense that it doesn't translate to reality. Otherwise, I will wish that we don't even have a reason to go on protest where salaries are paid, where the widening gap between the rich and the poor is collapsed, where our lives are secured and we can go to bed without fearing for our lives. We can go to our farms without fear that we will be harmed or killed on our farms and our crops will be destroyed, where you can turn on the switch and there's electricity, you can turn on the tap and there's running water, where our schools are functional, our hospitals are functional, where the system works, where our roads are no death traps anymore. I mean, if you have a country like that, why will you protest? There will be no reason for the protest because um, you are seeing value for your money. You're seeing dignity in the work you do because your employer, whether it's private or public, pays you what is commensurate with the work you are putting in. Why will I protest if my salaries come in at the right time? Why will I protest if my promotions are not withheld? Are withheld, sorry. So I was talking with someone today, a lady actually for that matter, who left, she was on the queue to get petrol. She was on the queue at 4:20 a.m. queuing up, waiting for the station to start dispensing at 8.
That is
Somebody had
in Nigeria, right?
in Nigeria. It has to be in Nigeria. That's the unfortunate thing. In a country where petroleum and petroleum products should be readily available and affordable, someone had to be at the gas station that early so she can buy. So why will people not protest? So, that's my roundabout way of saying that so long as there is inequalities in society of the proportion that we see in Nigeria, we're going to see protests, maybe more and more protests. Um, it's, again, ironically, the people who champion the Save Nigeria March are the people who are in government today, the people who advocated for the right to protest were the people who were resisting other people's right to protest. So to them, the right to protest is, they have a monopoly of a right to protest that other people shouldn't.
Talking about petroleum or gas, unfortunately, some of us grew up as kids seeing that, and you would think that 4 decades later, something like that would have been a thing of the past. And it's still a reality. And you begin to wonder, and to some extent, it even looks like we're regressing, right? If while going to primary school, I'm not old, but I've passed the 4 decades mark, right? And I'm still seeing this and hearing about that. I don't even know how to process that. And I don't want to bring something that is a little bit political, so to speak, but I'll say it anyway. What do you make of this whole Dangote saga? I call it saga purposefully because this is the issue. This man single-handedly has fixed or is trying to fix. Governments upon governments have refused to do this. I will use the word refuse, but someone, an entrepreneur, is trying to fix this. He built the biggest refinery, not just in Nigeria or Africa, but in the world. And you see all the frustration. What do you make of that?
So I'm not very conversant with the the economic decisions that were taken by the previous administration in the country.
Mhm.
What I hear, again, I have no way of verifying this. What I hear is that the loans that was taken by the Buhari administration used the crude oil that we are drilling as like a collateral.
Mm.
So that there is no crude oil in Nigeria for Dangote refinery. And what I hear is that it's going to take some time because it's in billions of dollars. So our creditors will have to be paid with crude oil
Mm.
before the Dangote refinery can even get the crude oil to refine. Um, that is what I hear. Like I said, I have no way of verifying this. I may have to do some little more work into it and see, establish the veracity of the claim.
The version of the story, the version I heard was it's against the government is against monopoly. That he has monopolized every sector of the market and it is not good for the country. Therefore, even the refinery, it's a form of monopoly that will not do the government and the people of Nigeria good. Did you hear that version?
So the Dangote cement that Nigerians are buying is harming Nigerians. The Dangote salt that Nigerians are buying, what harm is it doing to Nigerians?
So that is the point. The point is it may not do harm, but it is a form of monopoly that is not good for the country, despite the thousands of people that he employs, irrespective of where they're coming from, whether they are from the south or wherever.
But the problem is I mean, I again I'm hearing this for the first time. But when they did privatization, what were they doing? They were monopolizing our industries among themselves because you and I don't have, even before they go public, they had already finished selling to themselves.
Uh-huh.
So the vast sector of our economy is controlled by a few rich people who have monopolized everything. And for most cases, we're not even seeing the results. It's not trickling down to the common man.
Uh-huh.
And um, I don't care if Dangote monopolizes the refinery. How much money has been spent on NNPC Kaduna, Port Harcourt, and Warri, and there is nothing to show for.
Uh-huh.
Successive administrations have buried thousands and thousands, what am I saying, millions of dollars into the refineries with nothing to show for.
Uh-huh.
If we have a functional refinery, I don't care who has it. But in this case, it's even a Nigerian that owns it. Shouldn't
And
we be
it's in
celebrating?
Nigeria.
Yeah, it's owned by a Nigerian. It's in Nigeria. He's going to cut. Now, the money that gets made between exporting crude oil and importing refined petrol, that's where these thieves, that is where they make the money. That is where they keep fleecing the nation.
Uh-huh.
So if we are refining our crude oil, it is not just petrol we get from refining locally. There are other benefits to refining that we get from it, other byproducts that are equally useful. Uh, so you are benefiting in many more ways than just exporting crude and getting refined oil.
A few moments ago, you were someone listening to you will say you were trying to paint an unrealistic picture of utopia using Nigeria as a case study. When you were talking about, you wish that everything will just be okay, right? That there wouldn't even be any need for protest. People will have food, every child will go to school and everything. So somebody listening to that will say, well, that is very unrealistic because even the so-called advanced nations like America, that is not true about any country on earth. Why will you want that for Nigeria?
Because I have lived in that Nigeria before. I have lived in a Nigeria where we weren't paying school fees, where exercise books and textbooks were given to us freely. We were the product of the universal free primary education. So we enjoyed all of these free. It was in the same Nigeria. It was in the same Nigeria that you can just drive to the gas station anytime and you will be served. I grew up in that Nigeria. I grew up in the Nigeria where in secondary school, the secondary school that I went to, we will take tea with half a loaf of bread. And half a loaf of bread was big bread. I mean, it was big. So we took our breakfast with tea. Tea, of course, was I remember it was um, we took. I almost said bongo, uh, and milk and bread. We ate fish in school. We ate meat in school. So I'm not painting a Nigeria that has never existed, a picture of a Nigeria that never existed. I'm just reliving a Nigeria that I once lived in, and I'm saying that that Nigeria is still realizable today. Uh, there were no protests. At least when I was growing up, there was no protest. The earliest protest I saw was I think I'm trying to remember the earliest protest. And of course, we lived under the military for the most part. So how do you even protest? But the point I'm making is the Nigeria I'm talking about is not a fictional Nigeria. It's a Nigeria that once existed, and it's a Nigeria that can still be realized if we want it to work. Unfortunately, it's like we don't want that Nigeria again.
Who are the we in this context?
I mean, we will include the poor who have allowed ourselves to be used. Because see, this is what they do. Our rulers, because they are not our leaders, our rulers created the situation we have found ourselves in, and they use the situation they have put us into to continue to cause further divisions amongst ourselves, because that's the only way they can suppress us. That is the only way they can keep recycling themselves, by creating the divide and rule among the very poor. But one day the poor in Nigeria will rise. One day the poor will rise, and my fear is nobody will be spared. That for me is my fear, because even you and I who have just, I mean, if you have just one car, the poor may not even care how you got the money. Even if you are also someone struggling than them, the very poor will see you as being a level ahead, and you also will not be spared. So It is the voices of the poor collectively uniting collectively for a better Nigeria, so that the better Nigeria is not just something we dream of, but it's something we're intentional about realizing. And for most of us, that's a Nigeria we want to live in.
Two questions. One, what went wrong? Second question is, are you in any way insinuating, whether directly or indirectly, that military rule is to be preferred?
I think the mention of the military was just a by the way statement, uh, describing the era under which some of us grew up. Um, what went wrong? One is lack of foresight, lack of planning. And then I'll add another dimension is the
Lack of
wicked
foresight and lack of planning from who?
from I mean, so okay. So when the with the oil boom, Nigeria went on what commentators call a spending spree. The infamous Udoji, where money was just spent and distributed and just shared recklessly. There was no planning with that. And this spending spree has not ended. It's like Udoji was the beginning of a statement about the way of life of Nigeria as a nation. When monies come in, it is just spend, 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 and there is no planning for tomorrow. The other thing I was saying is it is sheer human wickedness that the beneficiaries of the universal free primary education, the beneficiaries of free school meals in secondary schools then, are the ones who are now making education uh, inaccessible to the common man. They are the ones who are now in positions of power, but who are not paying attention, who are not reciprocating, as it were, uh, reciprocating what they received to those who are presently in places where they should also be benefiting. So it's wickedness. They got it easy. They don't want anybody to get it easy. They got they got. I mean, it's. I'm just remembering when people graduated from schools those days. Those who were given brand new Volkswagen Beetle, and those who were given 504 Peugeot.
You mean colleges and universities?
No, I mean not colleges. Not well, not colleges, the Nigerian colleges, which is secondary school, but anybody who went beyond the secondary school, I mean, we're giving those free. Teachers were getting Volkswagen Beetle. Uh, Civil servants were getting Peugeots, and I mean, I remember all of those brand new, brand
That
new.
sounds like fairy tale
Yeah, they were given
to some
brand.
of us.
Yeah, on. Don't make me look like I've been around a million years. I'm very, very young. This is the Nigeria that I grew up in. Seeing people
Mm.
handed keys to brand new cars, and yet people who may have benefited from it are the ones sabotaging it today.
So why I asked the military question was that there are some people that genuinely think that maybe a return of the military regime will be the best thing for Nigeria. That democracy is not meant for us. Democracy does not is not a system of government that suits our context. and some will cite, some of these examples they were citing that happened during the military regime, and not we have never seen anything close to that in the so-called Western democracy that we have adopted. That, to some extent, some people may argue, does not seem to fit our context.
So before the advent of colonial imperial regimes in Africa, Africans had a system of government. Um, you say it is hierarchical. It doesn't matter. There is no government that is not. There is no government that is not hierarchical.
Even
So
religious institutions are hierarchical.
oh yes, and even in the Western type democracy,
Mm-hmm.
that's why you have the president as the chief executive, and then you have all of the various arms of government. They are not equal. Let no one deceive deceive
Hierarchy
us.
is not even a bad thing in the real
Yeah.
sense. Uh,
So,
to
but
deny hierarchy will be to be delusional of the realities of our humanity.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But because it ensured order within society,
Mhm.
and it kept society together. So I think that the problem is not so much with democracy. I think the problem is with Western type democracy. Now,
But
of
democracy
course,
is essentially a Western thing.
that in fact that's what I was going to say. I was going to say that.
Okay.
I think part of the problem of the West is to feel that their form of government is superior to every other.
Mhm.
And if you're not doing it our way, then you don't belong to the committee of civilized nations. And so you find the imposition of a form of government upon the people who already had their own forms of government. And so it creates tension. That's why you will hardly find democracy as they market it to us practiced anywhere in Africa. I don't know anywhere in Africa that we can say our democracy is like France or Germany or the United States or the UK, because those traditional forms of government rear their faces even when they are wearing Western democratic clothes. They will still rear their faces in the form of government. And I think also that removing authority, as I understand democracy, from the ruling head tends to dilute
Hmm.
the power structure within our traditional settings, so that governance becomes very difficult. You have your traditional baggage you're trying to fit in with the Western type democracy that is marketed, and you create a tension. And by the end of the day, you are neither the traditional rulership system that you had, nor are you the Western type democracy that they want you to be. So this tension leaves you almost like without an identity as far as your leadership structure is concerned.
Hmm.
Now, people have said in the past, I've had this, that the worst civilian administration is better than the best military regime. And I say it's not true. It's not true because the achievements that we made as a nation during the military, I wish we had done one third of that during the almost 20 years of democracy since it returned, or even more than that.
Somebody will say, yes, there may be achievement because it's some, one man basically that cuts the shots, and but you are deprived of your individual freedom. That even if you make reference of some of those all good days, um, people's freedoms were limited, and people lived in perpetual fear because they didn't know that there was a sense of unpredictability and uncertainty that when you put everything together, someone may say it wasn't worth it.
How free are we today? How predictable and certain are things today? When the price of pig milk in the morning is different from the price of pig milk in the afternoon, and that of the afternoon is different from the one in the evening, what is certain about the present day Nigeria, for instance? Um, well, what is certain about, at least during the military era, we could go to bed and sleep. On the road, you are not safe. On your farms, you are not safe. Uh, on your bed, you are not safe. So before we condemn the military and sing praises of the puppets who now parade themselves as democratic leaders, we must also evaluate, bring the two together and see what did we achieve during this regime and during this. I mean, I know that the only thing I can say happened with the democratic experience is that the resources circulated a little bit more. That's just it. That money was exchanging hands beyond the traditional, like the custodians of wealth in the nation. A few more people were getting richer by the day and getting empowered by the day. While what I'm saying may seem a contradiction, but beyond that, what else? And even what I said happened during the first few years of democracy. But subsequently, people have become poorer and poorer. And today, we are in the situation we find ourselves.
Dr. Chinne, thank you so much for this interesting, points. We talked about we're everywhere, just talking, rambling about a lot of things. So if you are watching this for the first time and you are new to this channel, we encourage you to go ahead and hit the subscribe button. There will be a lot of these conversations in the coming weeks and months and hopefully years. We'll be talking about just a lot of things as we deem fit, right? So this is a channel that we don't have any format or niche. We'll just be talking about whatever comes to mind. We hope that you will stick around, you will subscribe, you will share this with your friends, and we'll see you next time.